Chapter 3. They reach Amoeba on Bayou Strait and knock on the first person's house they are asking for food and water. The man who answers is Adam Stacy. He says, "Why, hey, come in. I do have a room in the back. Not enough bed for everyone, though. I'll bring you food. Tell me, what brings you here when I get the food ready?" Suru says, "He's too nice," as they reach the back room. Kahira says, "You all want to talk?" "Man, am I follower?" Suru says, "I'm not." "Then don't talk like that." Adam thinks they seem as though they are the followers. Soon it's time to eat. They all come to his dining room area. As they eat, Adam says, "What brings you here?" "Oh, a non-laughter bunch." Kahira says, "We came to Amoeba seeking the shrine of Hagashi." Adam says, "Oh, really? Why did you say that?" says Kahira. Adam says, "Well, you cult followers came to Bayou Strait seeking the shrine of Hagashi. Truly, you cult followers are fascinating." Kahira and Moroka both say, "Cult followers?" Adam smiles, saying, "Yes, you didn't think I knew, hey? You can't hide something like that. Tonight must be prophet night or something, and you were told by some druid that the real birthplace of Hagashi was here, not Amoeba. So his shrine has to be here as well. Well, he could have been born here, but I..." At that moment, Kahira pulls his sword and goes toward Adam. Adam, in shock, says, "Oh, did I disgrace you?" Moroka flies in between them and says, "Easy now, Kahira. And no, they really believed we were in Amoeba based on an assumption similar to your statement. We are not cult followers, just travelers, some with a temper." As she looks toward Kahira shamefully. As they move from Adam, he says, "Sorry, people, about that, but I am a map maker. I can give you an accurate map in the morning. But do stay." Kahira says, but Moroka throws her hand towards his mouth and says, "We'll stay." As they head to the back, she tells Kahira, "You can't almost attack this man and then just up and leave, especially when his hospitality toward us was only good." They head to sleep. The next morning, they make up their living space. They take baths and eat breakfast prepared by Adam. As they head off, Adam gives them the map. The crew takes what would appear to be the long way at the behest of Moroka. Kahira spots a rather large estate and walks to knock on the door. As the others wait on the steps, a beautiful lady opens the door. One of Kahira's eyes opens wider to which the lady smiles. Suru has turned and smiles heartily while Moroka frowns at all of this. The lady says, "I am Adana, the best potion seller in the area. How may I help you?" Kahira says, "Oh, a potion seller. What do you sell?" Adana says, "I sell potions of elixirs, antidotes, and ethers, all used for different levels of healing, including up to the point of death concerning the elixir, 10 pounds each." Kahira says, "Give me one of each." Suru says, "You all possess a lot of pounds." Cayenne says, "Yes and no. Kahira used to own his own store." Kahira pays the lady after receiving his potions, then they head off. The day passes by slowly into the night, which flows just as slowly. Kahira and the others roaming through eastern Cha region come across a home. The home is by itself with no neighbors, surrounded by a lush forest of strange plants. Kahira says, "Maybe I should go see if anyone lives here and would mind us spending the night." Moroka says, "Yes, you go ahead. We'll wait. Way over here, okay? Go." Playfully, she gestures him away. Kahira walks over alone and knocks as suddenly a beautiful lady again opens the door. Suru thinks, this fellow would appear to have a streak of luck. The lady says, "My name is Olga. Are you here for potions?" Kahira says, "Sorry, but we recently bought our fill of potions. We were wondering if you would let us rest at your place for the night. We're travelers on a quest. The night creeped on us before we could reach our destination." Olga says, "Gladly." As Kahira returns to tell the others, only to find Suru already standing almost right beside him, Kahira shakes his head as the others walk up. Moroka says, "That pretty face only proves she's a witch." Cayenne smirks, looking at his wife at this statement. The next day as they head off, Olga tells them to buy something next time. She goes to pick from the forest behind our home. Eventually, they arrive in Gurkintar. Moroka says, "Are we After we get through here, we'll be an amoeba. Then, though we have to pass a forest of centaurs, Suru says, Centaurs? We'll perish for sure. Kahira says, we'll just have to take our chances. Mayoria and Cayenne embrace hands tightly at this moment. Right before them, a school lets out. The students either head home or do whatever they do after school. One young lad doesn't. He walks looking toward Kahira and company. Standing by a wall, he listens and watches them as they converse. Mayoria says, yes, Kahira has a point. We don't want to get involved with anyone from this village. They drink from the water well and head into the unknown forest. As they step into the forest, the young lad from the school stops them. He says, stop, you fools. I am Ford. You are making a grave mistake stepping into this forest. They turn and look at him. Ford says, I am from the school you just passed by. Mayoria says, you followed us here? Ford says, yes. Modest looking. Kahira says, why? You do know you could get hurt. I could hurt you. Suru looks toward Kahira. Ford fearfully says, because you guys look interesting. And that being so, if you all walk straight in, danger will encompass you all in the form of herds of centaurs. I know a way in which if followed, instead of herds, an individual will only face a few. Moroka says, okay, we'll follow. Kahira says, we will? He could be a traitor of the village who assists the centaurs for ransom. Moroka says, Kahira, really, he's a child who just got out of school. Kahira says, so. Moroka says, oh, come on. Kahira lowly replies, oh, all right. They head with the lad to an edge of the forest, and Ford says, silently head through here. Don't say a word. If something sounds as though it is moving, freeze until it passes by. It's very likely no fighting will take place until the very end. Kahira says, so we'll fight no matter what. Ford says, I'm afraid so. To this, Kahira smirks. They begin silently walking through, but after 3 freezes, they stop, tired and a bit exhausted. They sit on a column of rocks. Moroka thinks, thirsty. I should drunk water earlier with the others. They are spotted by a centaur who charges straight toward them. Mayoria silently says, nobody move. They look toward her as the centaur moves in closely. Mayoria secretly pulls a dagger. She quickly throws it directly at the centaur. When it hits, it strikes so hard into the side of the centaur, his body is flung to the ground. The centaur gives off a loud roar. The crew notices at this point the entire forest goes quiet. They begin moving as silent, yet as fast of a pace as they can through the forest. They reach an opening, but they can tell something isn't right about it as they see this isn't the end. The end can be seen, though. The opening allows the sun in. There are no trees in the surrounding, only plants, small animals, and some rocks, which lead to a pond. All the quietness ceases as 2 armed male centaurs leap forward. Another female slowly rises out of the pond. They are all stone-faced. The armed female centaur says, murderer! A worked-up Mayoria, startled by her words, quickly throws and strikes her with the dagger. The female centaur in agony collapses in the pond. Suru goes for one of the males upon connecting their sword and lance clash. Noticing Suru in his background coming, Suru moves backward. Kahira leaps through the gap and strikes the sword of the centaur with his sword. The force knocks the sword loose of the centaur, and Kahira dispatches him with a slice to the ribs. This causes the centaur to fold. Cayenne and his centaur clash back and forth with their swords. Moroka, from above, launches downward, striking him in the face with her mystical gauntlet she wears. The effect is greater than anyone would have imagined, breaking the centaur's jaw and causing him to release his sword. Cayenne then proceeds to gut him. The centaur falls under the wound. The sound of raging horse steps is heard like a wave rushing in. The group runs as fast as they can. Moroka flies until they reach outside of the forest. They run until they reach the nearby village, breathing hard profusely. They understand the centaurs in the distance will come no further. They know villages are off limits. They stop to see the village of Amoeba before them, which is a weird view in that the ancient face of Hagashi is cemented in the background. It is carved into the mountain portion, similar to how previous Maname's face was in Nuri. Kahira, Cayenne, and Mayoya look off in disgust. Then Kahira, catching his breath, says, "We head straight for Hakashi's shrine after we drink this potion." Moroka says, "Thank goodness, because I am so thirsty." Kahira drinks the first of the potion and smiles. He hands it over to Moroka. She drinks the next of it and says, "What a refreshing taste." Cayenne drinks the next of it. He says, "It tastes like wine." Mayoya drinks after and says, "Sweeter than the sweetest wine I drink." Suru is the last to drink. He says, "I've never had wine, but it was delicious nonetheless." Kahira, then looking towards Suru, says, "You received the lasting leftover spit." Suru looks toward him with a smirk. The group is renewed to a state of well-being in mind and fully recovered in strength. They head for the shrine, walking straight through the village. They eventually notice a range of hills between the actual end of the village and the shrine, so they decide to rest. This due in no small part to having just faced a slew of centaurs that locate an inn and stop to rest. Chapter 4. King Rasusi, who was unable to catch the group when they were still in the area, was eventually overwhelmed by the reports of Afia. He, as well as the High Knight, who was recovering, had to face the fact the group were not lying, and the task to face the might of the four sorcerers of the wind and rebuilding Afia became their main objective. They really had no room to even focus on the group, whom, being untrained in their eyes, they assumed would perish on their crusade. That evening, as the group is gathered together outside of the inn, sitting amongst another, they talk. Mayoya says, "We are not killers. I say this because increasingly as we fight trying to make our way to the sorcerers, it seems everyone and everything is getting caught in the path, seemingly drawing us to that point. With these sorcerers who destroyed our families and livelihood, I had no problem with their deaths. But anyone who comes in our path?" Cayenne says, "Mayoya, I agree with you. We are not built for this. Not even Kahira. I mean, he a salesman, we farmers, but we were taught to defend ourselves, to know our protectors. King Rasusi and his guard are even up for the task. We have little choice." During this whole speech, Kahira stubbornly looks away with his hands crossed in silence, having stood up once Mayoya begun to talk. Near him sits Moroka on a boulder, who stares at him sorrowfully. Suru sits on a boulder nearby Moroka. He looks at Mayoya and Cayenne. Suru says, "We are not killers. This is true, but on something like this, a mission, if you will, to bring entities to justice, everything and anything will get in our way. We really have to keep faith and retaliate that in the process we are not overwhelmed by the blood we will most assuredly have to shed." Kahira then says, "Spoken well, boy," and walks off. Moroka by this point has put her head all the way down in the direction of Kahira. The next morning, they make their way through the large village of Amoeba. It is the largest village they have encountered thus far. They reach the hills, which are medium-sized. They cross 10 before reaching one larger than the others. As they reach over it, they see a lady at the bottom looking at the shrine. Kahira reacts by saying, "I'll handle this." Before the others can stop him, his pace brings him directly to her. His intensity immediately causes her to whirl around toward him, her eyes blinking at the sight of him. The lady says, "Huh? Have I done something wrong?" Kahira grabs her shirt and says, "How could she follow her? You can't possibly be of some form of defense to the shrine, could you?" Suru shakes his head, looking down. Cayenne and Mayoya look at one another puzzled. Moroka flies over to them and says, "Kahira, this has got to stop. Let her go. She is powerless." Kahira says, He lets her go and says, "Speak." The others have by this time made their way to them. The lady says, I am Saiko Zine, a teacher of the village, not a follower of Hagashi. They were here earlier. Ones who dress favor him. They were about to partake a journey to catch a demon of the west, gathering energy to free a dragon, I believe. Kahira says, "Oh, you speak truth, but how did you come across this detail of information?" Psycho says, "I was inside. I've been one who sneaks inside the shrine since my youth. It really is nothing special to get in." Now she is pointing. "Just go in through the hole there." Kahira says, "Thank you." They soon are inside, and Kahira says, almost exactly like Menemes, though smaller. The shrine on the inside truly has a striking resemblance to Menemes' shrine. The demon's area is quicker to locate, though the entity is not there. Cayenne says, "All the same, but where's the creature?" At this moment, a voice of horror, sounding similar to the combination of many voices all at once, speaks. Is this a hunt? Can an entity of the shadows get in on it? Or am I that which is being hunted? Mayoya says, "Its voice is all over and horrifying. Where could it be?" Cayenne says, "Hiding in the shadows, nothing more than a coward." The voice says, "No." Kahira and Moroka head off from the others, with Kahira looking toward corners. Kahira says, "I have a bloody blade for you, creature." The voice says, "Don't make me laugh." Suru, who was behind with Cayenne and Mayoya, has left from them, says, "Its shadow has appeared. Watch the ground it moves across." Light peers in, stemming from the outside entrances, which incorporate Hagashi's stony facial structure. From this, the imp in the form of his shadow moves swiftly around, both across the ground in the light area and in sound. When it's near, Cayenne says, "There it is," pointing with one of his swords across from where he and his wife are at the ground. Mayoya launches a dagger at the area. Suru says, "Kahira, Moroka, we have it." The imp leaps forward from the shadows at them. Suru swings his lance at it while Mayoya goes to reclaim her dagger, which is stuck in the ground. Kahira rushes over with his sword drawn, with Moroka tailing him. The imp knocks Cayenne and Mayoya away. Kahira, as he arrives, catches Suru, who is kicked by the imp. Mayoya from behind strikes the imp with the dagger. Cayenne and Moroka help her off the ground. The imp's laughter pervades the entire situation, seemingly coming from all directions. It runs from place to place, and Suru, swirling his lance over his head, throws it toward the creature like a spear. It knocks the creature off of its path, allowing Kahira to move in and pierce it with his sword. The imp retaliates by slicing at them with his claws, cutting Kahira across the chest. Kahira, still stone-faced as if nothing occurred, guts the creature. Even further, he pushes the blade deeper, damaging vital organs, which causes the creature to holler. Then he violently pulls his blade out. He looks toward Mayoya and says, "Hit it with all you've got." Understanding what he means, she begins harnessing a powerful spell which will be enough to damage the actual shrine. Moroka has rushed over to Kahira as he is making his way from before the beast. Everyone but Mayoya and Cayenne, who stands by her near an entrance, is making their way out. Moroka says, "Please, Kahira, move slow so I can heal you." Limping, Kahira was moving as fast as he could through, though bleeding, while Moroka struggled to hold on to his bigger than her body while floating. He moves slower, which allows her to start healing him. She has removed her mystic gauntlet and lays her hands on his flesh area where the wound is. Her hands are nervous, so she shakes, but they are teeming with magical bright energies which heal. His flesh restructures itself as though brand new, while the blood dries. Moroka blushes intimately. Mayoya releases her combination spell, which is basically a bomb composed of fire, water, and wind energies, causing Cayenne to step away from his wife. He is astonished as she is by the awesome release of energies. They rush as a wave of various colors of water and fire bursting about. The wind is hurling everything in a direction before the two. All of this force is rushing right at the creature's body, of which, unable to move because of its wounds, can only holler in pain. Once the energies connect with the imp's body, it gives off one final scream as all of the power concentrates and explodes. Mayoria and Cayenne are already out of the shrine, running as fast as they can. This causes the shrine to collapse as the prior one did. Psycho is still outside near the hill. She is speechless as the shrine begins to fall in itself, shaking her head. She realizes she had no idea what this bunch were actually up to, and that they, for the most part, must be dangerous. The others have stopped and turned as it falls, only to see that Mayoria and Cayenne made it out all right. Eventually, they all are together and hug. Mayoria and Cayenne are happy to see Kahira is fully healed. Psycho has already left, and they walk off toward the village. As they notice people have emerged, curious how the shrine is fallen, they walk around the village instead. Cayenne says, "How are we going to get to the other shrines? They are across the sea, and they may take us some time to actually get to." Suru says, "And don't forget that lady spoke of a creature the sorcerers were after. We need a form of transport." Mayoria says, "Cayenne, remember we once heard of a place which crafts hot air balloons up north, a place called Turi in the Hayu region?" Cayenne replies, "Yes, I think I do, Mayoria." Suru says, "So, we should go to this place and try to get these balloon crafters to produce us a transport, which can move us at the speed of wind through the sky?" Kahira says, "I'll never call you Manama follower again, friend." This statement causes Suru to smile. Moroka says, "Yes, this sounds great. We will have to more develop this idea, though, on the way before we tell it to anyone. To Tori it is, then." As Moroka says this, Cayenne, Mayoria, and Suru look back at her, smile, and begin to run. Only Kahira is still behind with their walking. It would appear they have begun to loosen up among another. Kahira, still devastated by the loss of his daughter, Suchi, refuses to open up. He still prefers to go it alone, though Moroka, who is drawn to him by the anguish she felt stemming from him in her dream, refuses to leave his side. They reach another forest. They walk calmly through until they all realize the last forest they were in was teeming with centaurs. They look alert at another, as Moroka recalls this forest should possess centaurs as well. It isn't long before they hear the sound of horses coming in their direction. As they all take off running, Mayoria falls and Cayenne quickly snatches her up while still in motion. As he has to drag her along, she screams. Cayenne looks at her confused. Mayoria, in pain, says, You dislocated my arm." This causes him to stop and Suru to trip over a rock, to which Kahira catches him. The centaur are closing in on them, but Kahira has a cold, hard look on his face. He tosses Suru ahead of him. He then rushes over to Cayenne and his wife and tosses them as well over to where Suru is. He then pulls his sword facing the direction of the incoming centaurs. Moroka sees them all tossed to where she is and looks back toward Kahira. Moroka thinks he is the strongest Rajakin I have ever seen. He's so brave, but reckless. I cannot let him die. Not now, no, not ever. She proceeds to quickly heal Mayoria. Then she flies over to Kahira as fast as she can. Kahira has already stabbed and taken down one centaur. He clashes with another, though he has been wounded. With tears in her eyes, she looks at her gauntlet and concentrates it, giving off energy. She, utilizing the energy, lifts up Kahira and flies him out of the forest as fast as she can, catching up with the others who are already making their way out. They are shocked at the sight of her carrying him. She places him down and begins to heal him. The centaurs have seemed to have stopped following them as they have reached outside the limits. Suru says he was going to sacrifice himself for us. Moroka, after fully healing him, collapses while Kahira begins to get up. Mayoria rushes over to pick her up. Kahira says she's all right, just suspended a lot. Cayenne says, "Let me help you up, my friend." Cayenne gives him a hand while Suru dusts him off. Kahira says, "Ah, Suru, I saw you almost about to cry when you thought I was near death." Suru, realizing Kahira is actually loosened up a bit, replies, "Me? I think that centaur stabbed you a little too hard and you are seeing things." Kahira turns toward Moroka and Mayoria and says, "Moroka, my friend, I owe you my life and I will repay you." Moroka, looking toward Kahira, smiles intensely, while Mayoya, looking down at her, who is beside her, smiles at her reaction. Suru says, maybe we should go on ahead.